And I was like, oh,
what was all this fuss about? Like,
yeah, literally.
we always do that though. We build these things up to be this major obstacle. I can't do that. You know,
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm a novice to it. And don't get me wrong, I still feel that, and that anxiety is still there, because this
yeah,
is new to me. This isn't, you know, this is what I've been doing it for a month.
yeah.
I've done about what is it now, 15 episodes. So
Yeah,
and
it's
not,
almost like we pedestal we pedestal the thing, don't we? We take the thing, we take the idea, and then we put it up here on a pedestal, and then we're like, oh my god, like, can I do this? And then it's like, oh, if we just bring it back down to our level, it's like, actually, like, you just feel the fear and you just do it, and then you realize that actually it was easy.
that's why one of my favorite quotes is, your only limit is you.
Yeah, it's true.
Because it's always us. We always say it to make out like it's something else, but we're the
Yeah.
only people stopping ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. It's your ego at the end of the day. Your ego gets involved. The inner critic gets involved. It's like, blah, 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 blah. You can't do that, blah, blah, blah. You're not good enough, blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, oh, oh. But
Yeah,
once we learn that that's not our truth, we don't actually have to identify with those thoughts. We can simply observe them. We can literally just observe them and choose not to attach to them, and just let them go through. Like, get curious instead. Like, something comes up and you're like, instead of believing it straight away and then being like, oh no, I can't do that, it's like, oh, I wonder what that means. I
yeah.
wonder what that is about. What's the belief underneath that? How can I actually see what's underneath that? And it's like, you know, the belief might be that, you know, I'm not good enough, or I don't deserve this, or I'm not worthy. And it's like, you just get curious about it. And when you get curious, then you can kind of unravel it, rather than just like attach into it and be like, oh, okay, all right, I'll just shrink and I won't.
No, it's true. That is so true. We're just taking we're shooting these bullets at ourselves, aren't we? We're
Yeah.
taking shots at ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what it's like. And we're taught to do that though from a young age, because we're never really taught to love ourselves and build ourselves up. We're kind of taught to hate ourselves and think that we're not good enough, and we need to constantly change ourselves or fix ourselves or do something to make ourselves different,
I hear
from what we are in this moment.
I hear you, and a lot about fitting in to
Yeah, yeah.
society and being
Yeah,
this.
and that's, it's tribe mentality.
Yeah,
So it's
no,
like,
it's true.
actually, it's built into our DNA to want to fit in, and to be a part of tribe. And then if we grow up in families or cultures that have particular beliefs, that then shame parts of ourselves, then we think maybe that part of ourselves isn't going to be accepted because
Mm.
it's not accepted by these people that we actually live with. So then we push it down and we reject it and disown it, and then it gets pushed like into your shadow and into your subconscious.
Yeah, it's we almost need to brace individuality, don't we?
Absolutely,
You,
absolutely. That's pretty much what I do. That's the essence of my work, is to unravel all of that bullshit, so that you can come back to the root of who you are, as an individual, as your unique self, like the way that you can show up uniquely as you. It's like, without that fear of being rejected and disowned by tribe, essentially.
yeah. So rather than trying to fit in, people should
Yeah.
accept you for who you are
Yeah,
and
but
what.
no one, like, you have to be the one to accept yourself.
Definitely comes from with it.
Yeah.
So we went over a little bit about embodiment there without.
Yeah. Pretty much, a little bit.
Megan, introduce yourself, please.
Okay, so I am Megan. I'm 29, currently living in London, and I am an embodiment guide and facilitator.
I've got a throw up outside sign. Sorry, I couldn't resist, Megan. I'm sorry. You're back in the neck of the woods. I couldn't keep quiet.
I'm in the end.
I couldn't hold it down. I was trying to conform there and be, you know,
Yeah. You do you.
be a quiet host.
Yeah.
Since you're the guest, sorry for butting in.
No problem. Yeah, that's it pretty much. That's me.
So let's talk about embodiment as a whole.
Okay.
What made you decide to become, no, actually explain embodiment. We did explain it a little. Why not go into a bit of that, and then I can ask you
Yeah.
some specifics.
So I guess like embodiment is to kind of like um bring something like and land it in the body and kind of like show up from that place. That could be anything really, but the way in which I do it is connecting to the body's intelligence and the wisdom of the body, which is often forgotten when we live in a world that is operating purely from the mind,
Mm.
and also a world that's full of people that are living with trauma. And I think there's a misconception around trauma that we think it's this big thing, and yes, it can be, but we also, everybody experiences minor traumas growing up, and this can be as little as being like just like dismissed by your caretakers as a child, like, I'll be quiet, you're interrupting me, like stuff like that can actually create trauma. And if we don't, which we often don't have the tools to deal with that as young children, it actually gets stuck in the body, and we accumulate it, and it kind of creates these beliefs around who we think we are. So yeah, basically embodiment is to come home to the body for me, to really land truth in the body, and be connected to the sensations and the wisdom of the body, and not so much attached to the logical mind. So it's like, rather than getting caught up in the monkey mind, where it's just like thought, latch onto this thought and that thought, and before you know it, you're in a rabbit hole. It's like dropping into the body and into the sensations that are present in the body. That can be through just like scanning it, feeling for a heat, for a texture, just feeling for what's alive. And when we do that, we are able to kind of shift and somatically release trapped emotions and trauma that gets stored in the body.
Cool.
Yeah.
Looking at what you do, I was thinking more. I got this concept of which you've explained anyway. Was just me kind of putting what I've got from that as well. Was kind of, it's almost like freedom.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's letting go, isn't it? Where the mind's controlling things, you're saying
Yeah.
the body needs to be set free.
Yeah.
And
It's letting go. It's a surrender. It's like surrendering to yourself, liberation of self. So yeah, freedom, absolutely. Freedom from the constraints that we actually put on ourselves, the contraction. So it's like working with the nervous system to regulate your nervous system so that you can be in a state of kind of relaxation rather than contraction all the time. And contraction feels like when you're triggered by something and you tense up and you feel it in your body and you're like, oh, that doesn't feel good. And your nervous system just goes,
yeah.
and sometimes we can be living in a constant state of that as well. So with embodiment, we're able to learn how to soothe our nervous systems, how to really be there for ourselves when we are triggered and when we are dysregulated, so that we can basically activate our non-sympathetic nervous system. So it's like a natural Valium. So it's really just like, yeah, being able to soothe ourselves and be that kind of parent for ourselves that often many of us didn't have, in terms of emotional availability. A lot of our parents are walking around with their own traumas and their own stuff that they're not aware of, and we take that on from babies. We don't have a sense of self. We are literally a direct mirror to our caretakers, and if they're not able to meet our emotional needs, that's where we end up with abandonment issues. Or if it's on the other end of the spectrum where we're smothered by our parents, then we can end up with a fear of being like engulfed, which shows up as an avoidant attachment style. So we're kind of like pushing away intimacy. Yeah, keeping distance. But the thing is, they're both attachment styles, like opposite end of the spectrum, but same core fear, which is fear of abandonment and fear of like being engulfed. So even if you're like anxiously attached, which is where you tend to grasp for validation and looking to like fill this void, underneath that there's an avoidancy as well, because if there wasn't an avoidancy, then you wouldn't be going after people that are not able to meet you. So it's like we're going for what's familiar, for what we've experienced in our childhood. We go for what's familiar, hoping for a happy ending, but obviously it's not going to work out that way.
Yeah, no, I hear that. What made you decide to become a guide?
So it's actually through my own experiences with abandonment trauma. To be honest, I grew up in a quite a emotionally toxic environment, where both parents were not really able to meet my emotional needs as a child, and I was dismissed a lot. So then I grew up to have very toxic relationships. From the age of 16 to 23, I was in relationships, and each one was really toxic, really unhealthy, the same pattern. And I'd just been repeating these patterns for years and years that left me feeling kind of hopeless, really low self-worth, depressed, anxious. And I kind of hit this turning point where my anxiety was so bad, I was literally having panic attacks daily. It was like I was going to go, like, I had two roads to go down. It was either I was going to heal, or I was going to end up going down a really bad road. So I just chose to start reading self-help books. I started meditating, and the journey sort of unfolded from there. And through my journey of self-development and self-actualization, I came to a place where I just really wanted to be of service for people who have had the same trauma and experiences as me.
So
So
by
that's,
helping others, you're helping yourself.
pardon?
So by helping others, it's also helping yourself. It's also healing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm always learning. Like, I am a student. I'm not just a teacher. I am a student, and I'm always learning. And I learn so much from my clients as well, just from working with people, like, because we're always mirrors to each other. And like, even when I'm in sessions with my clients, a lot of the time, like, they're mirroring to me something that needs to be processed and felt by me as well. And it's just like this kind of like domino healing effect that happens in the containers that I'm in with my clients. It's really beautiful, and it's so fulfilling. Like, I really love it.
For me, that's the beauty of life in regards to meeting different people with different experiences, and having some common ground and learning from each other. For me, that's like a natural process of life for me anyway, and how I see it.
Yeah,
Always learning.
absolutely.
And I may have experienced similar stuff, but I can always learn something new, and I can always evolve as a human being. So when I think of what you're saying, I'm thinking, yeah, that's kind of like how I like to look at life and learn
Yeah,
from others.
yeah, I like to see it as the vibration that you're kind of operating on. You tend to magnetize people
That's right.
that are going to mirror to you either something like just healing. Like, you draw people in that match your vibration.
Oh, definitely.
So yeah, so like, if you've got some like undealt with stuff, like, you're gonna draw people in that mirror that to you and make that apparent to you and trigger you. And like, it's up to you to see that as something that is happening for you and not to you, and something that you can really like look at yourself. It's like having that willingness to see, to really see yourself through other people,
Oh, I hear that.
technically.
Oh.
Yeah.
So how long have you been a guide for, Megan?
It's probably coming up to 2 years now.
Okay, the way you talk, I would think it'd be a lot longer.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been on the journey for about 7 years, like,
Yes.
spiritual journey, but I've only been teaching for 2 years.
Wow.
So yeah, it hasn't been that long. Yeah.
Isn't it exciting how much you're going to evolve,
Oh,
years?
no, I think this is why I'm in no rush. I'm in no rush to
Not
push or force anything, and I don't work that way anyway. Like, I really work from the deep feminine, which is being, really surrendering and being, and allowing life to kind of happen through me, and just really riding the waves, the ups and downs, and allowing myself to be in my humanness, which means like accepting and acknowledging all states, all emotional states, which sometimes they're really deep and down, sometimes they're really high, sometimes they're just like this. And I just try to really be surrendered into whatever state I happen to be in. So if I'm in like a state where it's like everything kind of feels like this, I'm trusting the process, and I'm trusting that I'm still being guided, and I'm just trusting that I'm being held by the universe. And I don't believe that in order to receive abundance and like I guess, the fruits of life. I don't believe that we need to work ourselves into the ground. I
Mm.
feel that we actually need to allow space to feel, and to be quiet, and to soften, and to crack open, and to kind of descend and unravel what's actually being held in our systems, rather than this kind of unintegrated masculine way of being, which is the way the world has been so far. I would say it's starting to break down now, but it's been kind of this like hyper doing, you know, do 9 to 5, work your life away, you have to do in order to get. And it's like,
Yeah.
nah, you don't, you really don't. You get to rest and receive, and kind of like
Self
work that way.
self-love.
Yeah, exactly, like nurturing your human form. And I think the society we live in is not built to nurture the human form. It's built to serve the system that we've been born into, which actually doesn't serve us. It serves, the people at the top. So
But you know, we're conditioned, or you know, trained, or you know, we take in that that's the way to be, that's how we should be, that's how we all should be living our lives, you know, chase the green, you know,
yeah, it's
and
it's
through
like
the
we're in a
we will
trance,
get
really.
fulfillment, and we'll get that life we all want.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's a trap.
It definitely is.
It's an
How
absolute
many
trap.
people are getting that greener and unhappy? So
Yeah, exactly. And it is, and this is the things we live in a world of people with anxiety disorders and depression, because they're actually not fulfilled, because
no.
what we deeply desire as human beings is to be of service, to live with intent, to live with purpose, to live in community, to
Mm,
support, love one another, to live in unity. And the current climate that we live in, it does not support that, and therefore people are feeling very unfulfilled, because we're not actually taught how to fulfill ourselves internally. We're taught that we need to grab it externally, but that external will never fill what's in here, because what is in here can only be filled from the inside out.
no, I'm with you 100%. How long did you have to study for to become a guide?
I didn't.
Really? Wow.
No, life experience. I'm completely self-taught.
Wow. But there's
Mm.
books and stuff you have to.
Yeah, of course. I've read so many books. Yeah, a lot of books. And I have mentors, and I have people to guide me. I've been in online courses, but I've not got a certificate as such,
Wow.
because it's not needed. It's not like, again, that's another rabbit hole we could go down. Like, this is all part of the system. Oh, you need this in order to
Yeah,
mean that
that's
you're
right.
professional, and that you're this and that. And it's actually like, well, no, I don't. I need the life experience I've had in order to come into my purpose work, because that's what I was put here on earth for. Like, not what I'm told by like the government, you know.
Yeah. And you can feel it though, isn't it? Well, I guess that's a lot about embodiment as well, is
Mm.
that being at one with, you know,
Yeah,
feeling it, because we've got all these, you know, we
yeah,
have these as human beings, we have it,
mm,
but we switch off from it because, as I said, we're chasing the money or whatever. But
yeah,
if we're
exactly.
allowing that in to fill the universe and kind of our journey, you know, it's
Yeah.
there within us, and it will guide us, like you said.
Yeah, but in order to actually in order to activate that, we have to slow down and lean in.
Yeah.
And that means kind of like stepping out of the rat race, and really tending to what is inside of our bodies, like what's alive in your body, which we can only feel when we actually stop and slow down and let ourselves feel it, which means like removing distractions. Like, we live in a world of consistent dopamine hits. Like, you have
Mhm.
social media, you have literally things everywhere that are just giving you dopamine hits. So like, we're addicted to it. So we're constantly doing something. If we're not watching Netflix, we're on our phones. If we're not doing that, we're doing something else. And it's like, how often do we actually stop, turn everything off, and just sit with ourselves, and just like go into that space and just feel like what is actually alive in our bodies. Like, how is your heart feeling? Can you even feel it? Are you open, or are you shut down and numb and contracted? It's like, we don't know these things until we actually tap in and start to awaken that felt sense.
No, I'm with you. Meditation.
Yeah, meditation is one, and obviously doing like embodiment journey, and so it's similar to meditation, but it's more movement, sound, breath. So really just allowing like sounds to kind of come up from inside of you and just come out of your throat, and just like letting yourself move rather than sitting still. But it's personal preference, like whatever feels good for each individual. Like for me, I sometimes do sitting still meditation, other times I do movement and I do embodiment, and yeah, but you can do whatever feels good, really.
Cool. What is embodied alchemy?
What is embodied alchemy?
Yeah.
So embodied alchemy is again allowing and giving space for your emotions to be fully felt, and when you actually give them the space to be felt all the way through, and this means by not abandoning or trying to escape the experience of an intense emotion, because often when we feel that intense emotion, the first thing we want to do is get out of the experience. So we distract ourselves, and then when we distract ourselves, it gets stuck, it doesn't get felt. Whereas when we stop everything we're doing and we go right into whatever that is, and that can feel scary to do at first, but I promise you now, when you actually allow yourself to feel it and you just close your eyes and you go fully into that experience, something happens. You give it the space to truly be felt, and then it alchemizes, which means it shifts. So the state of the emotion starts to shift into something else, and more times than not, it releases itself. It moves, because that's what it is. It's energy in motion. It wants to move.
Cool. So what does one of your sessions look like? Can you just explain?
Yeah, so I don't ordinarily do one-off sessions anymore, because I believe that the work that I do it's not a one session thing. It's ongoing. Yeah. It's a life's work, honestly. So the minimum I do is kind of like 3 to 6 months with somebody, and I meet with them on Zoom, much like we are now. And we just, we will chat, and I'll get a feel for kind of where they're at, and I meet them where they're at emotionally and energetically, and I kind of tap into what is actually needed for them, and I become that mirror. I shine a light on those blind spots. I guide them into themselves, so that they are able to look at the places in which they have rejected and disowned parts of themselves and become fragmented. So it's like calling back those fragmented pieces of their soul by coming into full acceptance of themselves, like fully as a multi-dimensional being, like every facet, even the bits that make you feel like, oh, I did that, I'm like that. It's like, okay, I can love that. And that's pretty much like what I do. But every session is different. Sometimes we go into embodiment journeys, sometimes I coach them. It really depends on like what's needed in the session.
Okay, cool. Why is self-love important?
Self-love is important because it enables you to be kind to yourself. It enables you to learn how to be sovereign, to stay in your power, rather than giving your power away to other people through reacting rather than responding. There's many, I mean, self-love is very broad. It's very broad. So like there, it can be taking a bath, listening to music, journaling, nourishing your body with nice food, with food that is good for you, being kind to yourself when you look in the mirror, not attaching yourself to negative and detrimental thoughts. Like there's so many areas to it. Making sure you're getting 8 hours of sleep a night, drinking enough water, like all of these things are self-love, and it's obviously it's so important because this enables you to feel good in your body, nourished in your body, grateful for your body, for everything that it does for you. And when you're feeling that way, like you show up in the world differently. you're open, you're soft, rather than hard and shut down and contracted. And when you're not loving yourself, you tend to then project that outward onto the world, and the world then reflects that self-hatred. So your whole experience of life would be entirely different to someone who is truly loving themselves, because if you're loving yourselves, that emanates outwards, and then the experience you have externally reflects that. So everything feels like warmer and like just more pleasant, basically, rather than being like, you know, like say you're in a really bad mood and you go to the shop and you're rude to the shop attendant, and then he's rude back to you, and then you blame him, and then it's just like that's your experience because that's what you're projecting. So it's like you're creating it for yourself. So when you're loving yourself, life as a whole is a much more pleasant experience generally.
No, I'm with you, because I can feel your positive energy, Megan.
Can you?
Yeah, I can feel it. You know, this light.
I love that.
It's so true, though. You know, when you speak to people, sometimes you get negative energy, and
Of course, yeah.
you know, I can feel your light.
I love that. This is why it's also important to be aware of your energy as well. Like I protect my energy all of the time, especially being in a city, like being in London, like there's a lot of people, a lot of energy. So it's like, just like bringing that kind of protective bubble of light around yourself several times a day can shield you. And being a woman as well, like when I walk out on the street, like I get a lot of like predatory and I feel them. I feel the energy, the predatory energy trying to kind of like penetrate my aura and my soul, and I just literally create this bubble, and I'm like, nope.
Deflect it like a force field.
Yeah, like deflect it. Like you are not penetrating me with that energy. Like no.
I hear you. I hear you. Being a Londoner, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think that kind of, I think you kind of summed up the next question I was going to ask about self-awareness, because it sounds like very self-aware and
yeah. So I mean, can definitely go into that as well, to be honest. I mean, self-awareness is you know, really seeing yourself, getting curious about yourself, recognizing your own toxicity, because we can all be toxic, having a willingness to choose something different, and to really just like peel back the layers on yourself, really, and like how you show up, your interactions with people, habits and behaviors and patterns that you have, like having awareness around those really enables you to see yourself and know yourself on a very, very deep level, like the deepest level. When you meet yourself like in those depths, like you know yourself inside out. And I feel like that's so important, because again enables you to come into that sovereignty, to really be solid in that, and to come from love, and to ask yourself as well, like, you know, in all interactions, like, is this loving? Is this coming from a loving space? Or is this like fueled by ego and judgment? Like really having that clear discernment, I think, comes from having that self-awareness.
it builds confidence, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
you're very confident within yourself. Yourself.
Yeah, it does, because like I know I used to be so shy and like not confident at all. Like I was really like, but it's because I had no safety in my body. I didn't know how to create that. So even if I'm in a situation now which triggers like a response from like my inner child or something, it's like knowing how to instantly create that safety in my body, and therefore show up confidently, because I've got myself, I'm holding myself, you know, like I'm soothing myself. Like I could be stood here like having an interaction with someone, you wouldn't even know that I'm doing that in my mind, creating that safety.
No, I hear you, definitely. How was being a guide impacted your life?
I mean, how hasn't it?
That's the question.
Yeah, it has massively impacted my life. Not even just being a guide, but also like being open to being taught and being a student, but being a guide, like it's very rewarding. It's like really humbling, and also holds me accountable for myself, in how I kind of show up in life.
Oh,
Just like
definitely.
really, really, yeah, just like constant accountability, like mirroring to me, like the spaces in which that I can kind of like show up in a more like firm and stronger way. But even that though is like, you don't always have to be, this is the thing, and I teach my clients this a lot, is that we don't actually always have to be strong.
Yeah.
And I'm human too, and I don't want to be pedestaled by any of my clients. So sometimes to allow them to see you in your humanness as well, rather than needing to be this kind of strong pillar all of the time.
No, I hear that. I hear that. It's all right to be vulnerable.
It is, and I mean, it's important. Without vulnerability, there's no intimacy, there's no real connection.
Just interested. What advice would you, or coaching would you give your younger self before you got into this, of course? Is there anything you'd or expose your younger self to say, right?
Yeah, I think I would probably tell myself that, like, it's okay. Like, it is okay. Everything is okay. And I'd probably tell myself to meet myself with more compassion, less self judgment, I would say, and less perfectionism. Like, it's okay to be messy. It's okay to be like raw around the edges. Like, you don't have to be perfect.
Just kind of like reassurance that
Like, you
it's a
don't need to be
process.
positive. Like, there's no need to be positive all the time. There's no need to try and strive for perfectionism. Like you get to just be you, and that's okay.
Yeah, and just kind of, yeah, thinking back, I'll be saying that to myself, that it's a process and this is what you need to go through to then eventually be who you are today. So
Yeah,
just go with it. Don't fight it. It's a
yeah,
part of you. It's all an experience, and you can learn from all these experiences, and you're just going to be better off for it rather than it's a negative. And I think that'll
yeah,
be, yeah,
exactly. Like looking at negative and positive as a spectrum as well.
yeah.
So like for me, I don't really see anything as negative or positive as
Mm.
such. I just see it as this spectrum. Some things don't feel that good. Some things feel really good. Either way, I'm going to learn something, and there's a lesson in there. So regardless, it's a blessing. So
Yeah.
like, even if something feels dense and heavy and less desirable, like, there's still wisdom in that. There's still an intelligence to that, and there's still something to be learned from that. And therefore, for me, that doesn't make it negative. It just makes it denser.
And an
And
experience.
yeah, it's part of being human.
Right. Megan, what platforms can people find you on?
Instagram and Facebook. I tend to usually go for Instagram more, though I'm more active on there. So my Instagram, shall I do, are you gonna like put a little thing, or shall I just
Yeah, no,
say?
I can do all that. You can
Oh,
you
okay.
can do it as well if you want, but I will definitely put.
Oh yeah, you just put it on then, yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that once I sort out the editing.
Yeah. All right, sweet.
I just want to thank you very much. It's been
Thank you.
really informative. It's been great having you on the show. And please do come back. And you're
Yeah,
welcome. Yeah,
thank you so much for having me.
it's all right. It's been a pleasure. I'll see you soon. See you later.
Yeah,
Bye bye.
bye.